Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. So for today's video, I thought I would do something a bit different to my usual videos and something that I've been wanting to film for a while, but I don't know why I've never filmed it before. I guess the time just didn't feel right, I'm not sure. But I woke up this morning and thought that I wanted to film it today for the people that are going through something similar or have been through something similar and want something to relate to, because I know this would have been really great help when I was going through it. As you would have seen by the title, I lost my mum in December 2019. It's just gone a year since her death anniversary. I don't know if that's a thing, but yeah, so it's now January 2021 and I feel like now I am ready to talk about it and to, like I say, help other people, maybe if you're going through something similar. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be quite long, so I might split it into two parts. To begin with, I'll give you a bit of a backstory. So I lived with my brother, my mum and my dog. So my parents split up when I was in year 5 or 6, I think. So how old are you then? Like 12? I can't remember, but I was really young when they split. I can't really remember that too much, but anyway, so yeah, so it's just been me, mum and my brother living here. My mum had always been strong, healthy, fit. She would walk the dog like miles every day. She went to the gym most days after work. She loved working out and swimming and just being active. She was always doing something. She didn't like sitting around doing nothing. End of October, beginning of November in 2018, she fell ill and she was getting really bad headaches to the point where she couldn't get out of bed, so she was off work sick. She spent every day in bed with the curtains closed because the light was hurting her eyes, kind of like a migraine. She just slept all day. She wouldn't get up unless she needed food or to go to the bathroom. So we booked her an appointment to go to the doctors. I think I must have drove her because she wouldn't have been fit to drive, and they said, you've got a migraine, like it's normal, it's fine. So I don't think they gave her any medication or anything like that. We just went home. They told her to rest, probably drink lots of water. Obviously this was like 3 years ago, so I'm trying to remember. Wait, 18, 19, 20, nearly 4 years ago. God, 3 to 4 years ago. So I'm trying to remember everything I can and everything in as much detail as I can. But if I do forget things, I might like go back and make different points. But yeah, they said, you've just got a migraine, you'll be fine. If it doesn't go in a certain amount of days, or might have been a week or something, then come back. And obviously it didn't go, so we went back to the doctors, spoke to the same doctor, and they said, yeah, it's meningitis, you must have meningitis. Bearing in mind they didn't do any scans, any blood tests, they didn't do any of that. This was all just from looking at my mum. Also, when we went out, she would wear her sunglasses even though it was winter because the light hurt her eyes, hurt her head. Yeah, after we went to the doctors, they said, you've got meningitis and I really can't remember what they said about meningitis. I think they must have given us some kind of medication or something. Anyway, it was weeks before we actually managed to get a scan, so we went back to the doctors for a third time and said, look, it's still not right, she's still not well, and she was getting worse. She just stayed in bed literally all the time. Her head was hurting so much, she just slept all the time. And they said, yeah, it's been so, by this time it was like end of November, so it had been pretty much a month and we had no progression on what was wrong with her. So they said, yeah, we're gonna do you a MRI scan. So then we had to go to the hospital and have the scan. So we had the scan and then we came home, nothing really changed or progressed, and then we had to go back to the doctors to the hospital once the MRI scan came back. You have to wait for the results for a few days. So we went back and we had an appointment with one of the nurses there, and they said that they'd found a tumour. So they found a tumour on her brain. At this point, I don't think they said how aggressive it was. Not that I know of anyway. I think throughout the whole thing I was very naive to everything that was going on, because you almost don't want to believe it and you're sort of living in your own bubble. So then, yeah, she was diagnosed with a brain tumour in December 2019, and no, December 2018, and it was agreed that in January 2019 she would have keyhole surgery, which means they like slice your head open and they make a little hole and they'll pull out the tumour, or as much of it as they can. Obviously there's going to be parts left of it. Basically how brain tumours work, they kind of have like lots of different tentacles and lots of parts to them, so they're really hard to cure. Yeah, it says on Google they have finger-like tentacles, which makes them hard to remove completely. So they kind of like have a main part and then they like go off. Yeah, like the tentacles go off the main part, which is why they're so hard to cure and remove. So she had the operation. She was in hospital for days because they couldn't set an exact date, because people with like emergency traumas that are just happening like need operations on that day that have come in from like ambulances and stuff. They obviously would get seen before my mum, so then my mum would get pushed back. So I think she was in hospital for a few days before the operation. I remember the first night that she stayed, I was an absolute mess, and I remember the nurse, she was horrible to me because I was crying and I didn't want to leave, because obviously they have set hours at the hospital that you can visit. So I stayed with her all day and then it got to probably like 8 o'clock or something at night and I didn't want to leave. This was like the first time that someone close to me had been in hospital, so yeah, I just didn't want to leave. And the nurse was horrible. She was saying, well, what do you think is going to happen? We're not going to do anything bad, like you're going to see her tomorrow, it's all fine, just like go home. But it was just very scary and very overwhelming, and yeah, I didn't want to leave, but obviously I had to. I knew I had to. So yeah, she recovered fine from the surgery, everything was fine. So we had a meeting with the oncologist and they said that she would have chemotherapy and radiotherapy to get rid of what's left in the brain, because obviously with the surgery, like I said, they can't remove all of it. Yeah, so she had chemotherapy and radiotherapy. She had to go into the hospital 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. She went in every day. At this point, nothing really changed. It was like she didn't have cancer. Everything just felt normal. She was still active, she was still walking around. I think the pain was more bearable. I think, can't remember if she was given steroids at this point, but I know definitely later on down the line she was, because that is like what they give people with cancer to, or with brain tumours, to help with pain, obviously because it's swelling. So yeah, they might have done actually, because she would have been swollen from the operation. So then yeah, she had chemotherapy, radiotherapy. She had the first round of all that. Radiotherapy you can only have once, so you can only do so much of it, I think because of like how harsh it is. So she basically had like this mask that she would have to wear. It was like a mesh thing, and she would lie down on a bed, and the mask, it was made to fit her face, and it would be marked with where the laser from the radiotherapy needed to hit. So she would have to take that with her every time to the hospital, and it sort of, I think it got screwed on to the bed, so she had like this mask over her. She'd be lying down and it would be screwed on so that she couldn't move. Obviously if the radiotherapy hits the wrong part, then it's damaging. I don't know what the damages are, but it's not good. So yeah, she did that. She completed that round. Obviously we were going in for checkups. She was having more scans to see if it was working. So yeah, nothing really changed when she had the first rounds of chemo and radio. She was fine. Like I say, life just carried on as normal. I was still going to college. My brother was in school, I think. He would have been in school. Yeah, he was. His last year of school. So he was doing his GCSEs, I think, at the time. Then we had a scan which showed, this point we're in like mid 2019. She had a scan which showed that it hadn't been working. Yeah, it wasn't working, what we had been doing. So she had done the whole course of radio, so like I say, you can't have more than one, or at least as far as I'm aware for this situation she couldn't. So then we had to move her on to a different type of chemotherapy which she took at home. Again, nothing really changed other than, I think around this point her driving license got taken off her, because obviously having a brain tumour affects your eyes and your sight, even though her sight was fine, but like medically under the laws you can't drive. So she got her driving license taken off her, and she also wasn't allowed to work. So the two main things that my mum loved, or like liked to do, were taken away from her. So she lost her independence, and this point started to affect her mentally. Then we found out that this chemo wasn't working either, and there's only so much that they can do. And I remember my granddad saying to me, I think this is the last round of chemo. I think this is the last thing that they can do to help. And it wasn't until this third chemo that she started to really deteriorate, and she couldn't walk far at all without getting out of breath. She couldn't walk up the stairs. She wasn't eating as much. She just wasn't herself. She was very down all the time because she couldn't go out. She couldn't drive. She couldn't walk anywhere because she was getting puffed out. So she was stuck in this house. I wasn't going to college anymore because I just wanted to be at home with my mum all the time. I wasn't getting any support from college at all. None of my college friends were really there for me. Obviously I had friends from school, but friends that I thought I'd made in college turned out to not be friends. None of them checked up on me to see if I was alright, even though they knew what was going on. So I was still doing the work, and I went in if I really had to. If I had work to hand in, I would go in, but other than that I just wanted to stay at home. So that's what I did. I was still working, but I only worked 2 days a week, so it wasn't really anything that would get in the way. Yeah, so she's not working anymore, she's not driving. I remember this one time we went out to, this is like one of the last times I actually got to go out with my mum. We went to the garden centre. It's our favourite, was our favourite garden centre to go to, and it took us ages to even get out the house because she just couldn't walk properly. She was just so tired, but she wanted to go. So we got there. It was just not a good experience. She was so puffed out. She was walking so slowly around everywhere. She went to the toilet, but because she'd lost all of her strength when she was in the bathroom, she couldn't like lift herself back up. Then we got her a wheelchair, so it would be easier for her to go round. This was just at the garden centre, so they have like those ones that you can just use whilst you're there. She got stuck in it. She couldn't lift herself up. At this point as well, she was also putting on weight because obviously she's not doing exercise. She's sitting inside, and she was also on steroids, which one of the side effects is that you put on weight. So her appearance changed quite a lot. So yeah, we ended up going home from the garden centre. We didn't even get to look round because she got so stressed out that she couldn't get out of this chair. I had to try and help her, but I wasn't strong enough, so we had to get the staff to help. It was just traumatic. I remember I rang my brother and I was crying on the phone in this garden centre because I just knew at that point that things weren't going to be the same again. And obviously the months that had gone, it was like everything was fine. So it wasn't up until this point that I really started to realise what was happening and the changes that were happening. And so yeah, the third chemo was the one where it hit her the most, and when it hit me the most, and probably all of my family and close friends. So she struggled to walk up the stairs, which meant getting to bed was difficult. So we actually had a hospital bed put in our living room, which again was horrible because you just can't escape this like harsh reality. We also had a rail put in up the stairs, which she never actually used because it didn't help. We've still got it there now. So that was screwed. We have a banister on one side of the stairs, which is already there, but then the other side was just a wall, so we had a rail put in. Yeah, she couldn't do anything. We had this hospital bed put in, and then I remember one day, I must have gone to college that day, and then I came back home. My granddad was here, and my mum and grandma had been to the hospital, and they came back and they were both just really quiet. And I was just kind of confused, like didn't really know what was going on. Like I say, I was very naive throughout the whole of this. And I remember I said, like, what's the news? Because it was a consultation with the it was an appointment with the oncologist, so it was like a catch-up to see what was happening. I think she'd had a scan, so I think we got the results back this day. And my mum, I said, what's happening? And my mum said, oh well, we'll talk about it later, it's fine, we can talk about it later. And I think my grandma said, no, it's fine, like just say it now. And my mum said, there's nothing else they can do for me now. So at that point she had been what's the word, like let go of from the hospital, discharged from the hospital. They said there was nothing else they could do. I just remember giving my mum the biggest hug and I was just crying, and I don't know why or how she wasn't crying. So out of this she seemed so strong, but I know that she was just trying to not show us that she was suffering, which I think probably did help, but it wasn't good for her mental health because she wasn't showing that side of things. You know the effects of cancer and what it could do, you never think it's going to happen to you. So when I first got told that mum has a brain tumour, I never once thought like she's going to die, she's not going to be here anymore. I just thought she'll get better. Like, the hospital, they know what they're doing. The chemotherapy, the radiotherapy, it works. Actually looking into it, I did a lot of research. I had like a massive book full of all my information. I literally spent every day, morning to evening, researching this. I would be watching YouTube videos, writing down references. Like, I would be doing like the lot, because it literally was a matter of life or death, and I just couldn't bear to see my mum suffer. And I know that when and if she did pass, I couldn't live with feeling guilty that I hadn't done enough to help her. So this research that I was doing was like my way of trying to help her. And then, so this was about a year on. So I think about November, end of October, beginning of November 2019. And yeah, we had the hospital bed put in, so she would stay in the hospital bed. We were referred to a carers organisation or like company. So we had carers coming in the morning and in the evening. And then I think later on they ended up coming 3 times a day, so they would come morning, afternoon and evening. I remember everyone saying to me, you need to not go to work, you need to not do anything, just be here with her, because she was going to deteriorate very quickly from now. And I didn't realise how fast she would deteriorate. So we also had a physiotherapist coming in, because obviously she's not moving, she's sitting or lying down on this bed 24/7. So he came, I'm not sure if it was every day, I can't really remember. So he would do small exercises with her so that she would still be moving a little bit. We also had more equipment put in the house, like chairs. Yeah, so we literally couldn't escape it. She needed help getting dressed, she needed help getting washed, she needed help going to the bathroom, all of which I had to do. But having the carers there meant that they helped as well. It was a bit of a relief when we had them come in, but it was also hard knowing that just a few months ago, my mum was able to do all of this herself, and now we've got carers coming in all the time. We've got nurses coming in as well, so they like change the bed sheets and stuff. They just generally check her health and make sure she's alright. Obviously alright as she can be. They kept up to date with her medication to ease the pain, so that was the only thing they could do. They could only give her medication to help the pain, the relief of the pain. They couldn't actually do anything else. Also, I had obviously my grandparents coming in every day to help, or every other day, as much as they could. She wasn't really eating much at this point. I had to like text her to remind her to eat, make sure that she ate as much as possible. And then she started getting sore legs, so she had a lot of water retention in her legs, which is a build-up of water, so like the muscle holds the water because she's not moving. I think she was at home for a bit with the water retention, but then nothing helped, so that's when they said you need to go into hospital so that they can help you further. She went in, and this is where she spent the last few weeks of her life. We always thought she would be coming home, but there was a lot of complications while she was in hospital, so the water retention was being helped with medication and I think creams as well, because I think her skin was peeling, or it was like a rash. Then they found a blood clot which they had to get rid of because obviously if it got to her heart it would have been very dangerous, so they had to give her blood thinners, which in itself is dangerous, but then she was also on steroids, and I think the two together can be really bad, but it's the only option we had. So that got solved, and by this point it's late November, and at the start of December, I can't remember what dates it was, but I remember at the beginning of December I was going on a trip to Milan. I think we were only there for 2 or 3 nights, but I was umming and ahhing for ages on whether to go because I didn't want to leave my mum. As soon as my mum went in hospital, I was with her every day. I went in the morning and I wouldn't leave till evening. So because she was on a special ward, they had like the visiting times were more open, like they had more hours, so it meant I could spend all day there, which was so tiring. It was very draining. I spent so much money because the car park, not that it matters because I would have spent like endless amounts of money to be able to see my mum, but the car park was so expensive. Bear in mind I was going in every day. The food at hospitals is expensive, and then we'd come home late at night. We'd either not eat, or when I say we, I mean me and my brother, we'd either not eat or we would get a takeaway. So at this point as well, I started putting on a lot of weight from stress and eating. Obviously at the hospital you can't really eat like healthy. All they had was an M&S and a Costa, so we would just eat like sandwiches, cookies, like all the junk food. So yeah, she was on a shared ward. As far as I can remember at this point, she was fine. She was still talking and laughing. She was very aware of the situation though, but it wasn't long until all of that changed and she stopped being aware of everything that was around her. Also as well, before she went into hospital, she was also very confused, which is a very big symptom of a GBM, brain tumour. Oh, I don't think I mentioned it was a grade 4 brain tumour, which is the worst type, which again at the start I was very naive to. I didn't really read up about it, but the average life expectancy for a GBM is 12 to 18 months. My mum lasted 12 months, which is about average for a GBM, but like I said, I didn't know that at the time. Yeah, she was really confused all the time. She couldn't speak properly. She would think I was like on a night out, but I'd actually be at work. She would think that she was just confused all the time. She'd get the times wrong, the dates wrong. She just wasn't aware of her surroundings. So then in hospital, she started to deteriorate to the point where she couldn't talk properly or talk at all. In fact, she slept all the time. Her mouth was really dry, so they had like this, it was like almost like a toothpaste, but you just put it on your teeth to make saliva. She wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking, she was breathing really heavily. She then got put into her own room because of how much she was deteriorating. Yeah, I just remember it was like, I mean this in the nicest way possible, she was like a dead person in her alive, like her body was alive but she wasn't there, because she just wouldn't do anything. She wouldn't eat, she wouldn't walk, she wouldn't talk. She was just lying on this bed all the time. And like I say, I spent every day there with her. But going back to the story about Milan, I had a trip planned to go to Milan for months, and we were going at the start of December, me and Connor. And I was umming and ahhing for ages on whether I should go, because I didn't want to leave Mum, and I was worrying that something may happen when I went. But everyone said I should go because it would be a good break for me. It was only for a few nights, so it wasn't like I was going away for weeks. And it wasn't like I was going that far really. It was only a few hours on the plane. So I think it was on the second day we were there, I had a call from the hospital to say that my mum had had a fit in the night. It wasn't severe, it was just a mild fit. Obviously because I was away and I wasn't there, I was worrying. If you follow me on Instagram or anything, you probably would have seen these photos, and this was actually the day that I found out my mum had a fit. Just wanted to tell you that so that you can see that not everything you see online is how it is, because like this was a really bad day for me. But obviously I look fine in the picture. I remember texting my mum all the time. One thing I haven't mentioned actually is that she had really bad eyesight, which is obviously a effect of the tumour because it's in your brain. It affects your eyes. Yeah, so she couldn't really see, she couldn't text because it was so small, she couldn't read it to text people, so I had to text people for her. But yeah, when I was in Milan, I literally texted her like every day, giving her update, and I just wouldn't get any reply back. I still have like all the texts on my phone. I don't think I'll ever get rid of them. So then I came back from Milan. We must have only been back for about a week. In that week there wasn't really anything that changed. It was still the same, still in hospital in that room. Actually, one of the good things about having that room meant that we were able to stay over. Oh no, they actually gave us a separate room, so we had two rooms. The room that my mum was in, then they gave us another room which was like the family room, so that we could stay. So there was a sofa bed, a TV, a fridge, microwave, kettle, and a bathroom. So it was like a little ensuite room, which I never actually got to use. I was planning on staying the night of the day that my mum passed away, if that makes sense. Nothing really changed. The day before she passed away, I remember thinking her breathing had changed a bit. She was breathing like, it sounded like she was struggling to breathe. She couldn't catch her breath. Obviously she still couldn't talk and stuff. I don't actually remember what the last conversation that we had was, because I didn't know that was going to be the last conversation. I stayed at Connor's on the Tuesday night. I woke up Wednesday morning with a missed call and a voicemail to ring the hospital back, that number. And I remember saying to Connor, oh, it's fine, she's probably just had another fit or something. And so I rang the hospital back, and the nurse said, oh, I just need to I'll just put you on hold a second until I get the nurse that has been dealing with your mum. And whilst I was on hold, my grandma rang me, and I remember just hearing my grandma crying down the phone, and at that point I just knew. And she told me, she said, "I'm so sorry, but your mum passed away this morning." And we were both just crying on the phone. And also, one thing I forgot to mention is that my car had broken, so I actually had no way of getting myself to the hospital, and the hospital is in a different city to me. So yeah, my car actually broke down on my way to see my mum one of the days in hospital. So I ended up having to get lifts of people, but I really didn't like asking for lift, or I'd get an Uber. I was saying that because Connor's parents actually drove me and Solomon to the hospital that day. That was probably like the worst day, and probably will be the worst day of my life. But seeing my mum in the hospital dead, I will never not get over the picture of that in my head. It's a time of my life that I repeatedly, is that the right word? Repeatedly, I don't know if that's a word, think over in my head, and it's not nice, especially around the time of the 1 year death anniversary. I was getting a lot of flashbacks of that time in hospital, and to the point where I could like hear her breathing, and I could smell the room, and like I could see everything that was in that hospital room. And it's so weird because it was like I was living back in that moment. But I'll do another video, because this one's already really long. I'll do another one on dealing with grief and what comes after death. So if that's something that you want to see, then make sure you subscribe for more videos about this. Yeah, I just wanted to make this video to say, if anyone is going through something similar, then you're not alone. I completely understand. If you ever need anything, there are a lot of helplines and charities that I'll leave in the description below of help that you can get. Yeah, just know that you're not alone, and just keep fighting and keep strong for yourself as well as whoever it is that's going through this. Yeah, I hope that you found this helpful or insightful. Also, I just want to raise awareness for this kind of thing. It's been a really hard video to film, and I've been thinking of filming it for ages, but I just haven't got around to doing it. So yeah, thank you for watching and for listening to my story, and my thoughts are with anyone who has lost someone or is going through something similar. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.